Hello and welcome back to a slightly groggy tea time with Meoni today. I've had a bit of a headache this morning and basically it's been a little bit tough to sort of bring myself to things. I think I'm under the weather a little bit, so I'm trying not to let it get to me too much. I'm going to have some hot lemon and honey later, but for now we're just going to stick to an ordinary tea and go through today's tea time with Meoni. I did promise I would do one of these each week and I really enjoy doing them so far. It's been a lot of fun to just sort of let my hair down a bit and just chill for a bit and just talk to you guys as if you were here in the room with me. So obviously our streaming sort of capability is sort of estimated close to Christmas now, if anything's to be believed. And until then, I can't really do anything remotely fast on the internet. I can't upload any faster and I certainly can't stream yet. But you know, we have our little corner where we get to talk to each other, and hopefully you're enjoying the videos that I'm putting out each week as well. For Final Fantasy XIV, there's a bit of a sort of gap in content on the channel, but that's mostly due to the fact that we're sort of in between content, and 5.1 is just around the corner, as I usually say, with them giving it a 29th of October release date, which is what we expected all along, just in time for Halloween. So, of the things that came from the 5.1 live letter, i.e. live letter part 55, were that we finally got confirmation at least, that we're going to be getting a flying porksy mount from the new Beast Tribe. The Beast Tribe looks absolutely insane with their multicolored dimension entirely designed just for the Pixie Beast Tribe quests, where you actually get to group up with other players inside eventually. And I can imagine it'll be a lot of fun. I'll probably end up spending a lot of time there personally. And whilst we didn't get verbal confirmation, obviously, that this will be the new mount from the Beast Tribe, it was kind of obvious considering the Flying Porksy has been seen in pretty much all of the Beast Tribe information, like sort of pictures that we've seen, included on the special site as well. So I imagine the Pixie Wing dream is unfortunately not a reality at this point. I am sort of hopeful for the future that we might get some wings on the back of our characters that would allow us to fly. Immersion, just throw that word out of a window. We have cars, flying bikes, Marlboros now. All of this sort of stuff needs to be thrown away, the idea of immersion, because at this point there is nothing new that we could add to the game that would break it any further anyway. So I would love there to be some flying sort of capability with wings. I know that some of you have some other ideas, such as Patrick Dorian, who commented last week. A cool mount would be the flight animation that we see when we're transferring from the first area to the second area in the anti-tower right after the frog boss. I couldn't agree more, something like that. There's a lot of really cool sort of animations where your character sort of sits on something or stands on something. For example, if you've done the Dungeons of Ligaia, the new treasure map dungeons inside Shadowbringers, then you'll know that to transition between those areas, those floors, you actually go on this flying disc that's glowing. I would love to see like a flying disc mount, similar to what we have in World of Warcraft, if you've played that game, with the flying disc mount in that game as well. But it is what it is, and the 29th of October, I don't know, I'm probably going to just sink as much time into the Beast Tribe as possible, especially considering you could hopefully get 2 days like you normally can of Beast Tribe if you manage to get onto the game before 4 p.m. You do the Beast Tribe quest and then they reset, so you kind of get an extra day. So that's something I would definitely recommend you to do, and something that I always do every time to try and get my mount 1 day earlier every time there's a new Beast Tribe. So this week we do have quite a few questions, and considering I'm a little bit ill, I don't really have much to bring to the table other than a bit of hype for 5.1, so I thought we'd focus on the questions themselves. So Blake R. asks, I recently bought a medium house on Diabolos. Yes, I'm a lucky duck. Where do you see guild making going in 5.1? Need to rebuild my in-game bank account. So in terms of sort of guild making for 5.1, I mean, we have alliance raids, we have the new ultimate, so maybe you want to look into some cooking, so culinarian, people will always need raid food, other things like potions, so alchemy, that sort of stuff. You have to think what's going to be in high demand. Obviously a lot of these big guilds, these big FCs or statics, will have their own crafters in-house anyway, but you have to remember remember, a lot of these people who will be doing the content don't necessarily belong to the same FC or have crafters and gatherers. So, there is going to be a decent market for that, albeit quite a saturated one after the first couple of days. So, bear that in mind. Apart from that, we've got Ishgard Restoration, so maybe you want to look into selling some crafting leave gear and some gathering leave gear. So all of the stuff that you basically need to turn in for leave quests or levy quests, however you want to pronounce those, will make you quite a bit of gil, because people would rather just purchase those off of the auction house, off the market board, and then turn them in straight away. So obviously you're going to sell quite a lot of that stuff. So it's just a case of you going, okay, what content is actually going to be in this patch or patches over the next couple of weeks? Well, people are going to be crafting a lot of stuff and gathering. Some people will be wanting to level crafters and gatherers to take part in that content, because obviously there are mounts, rewards, and glamour and stuff that they showed off in the live letter. And that's really where I see a lot of the sort of gil coming from. So if you want to make some bank come 5.1, just think logically about what you would want to actually take part in if you didn't have crafters and gatherers, or if you wanted to raid, etc. And there's no real wrong answer to that. There's always going to be a market somewhere. You've just got to basically look at each step and work backwards from there. And hopefully that helps. It's just basic advice that everybody could give you, but really the simple methods are always the best anyway. ADS1281 says, "Hi Meoni, I don't know if this would be a question you would answer on your tea time video, but I'll give it a shot. I'm new to the game, got into it through your videos actually, and that's awesome, thank you very much for that, and I really hope you're enjoying yourself in the world of Eorzea. I started playing White Mage, and I've really grown to like healing. If you have any tips for a noob healer so I can actually be decent in dungeons and raids." The first real step to being a decent healer in a video game like this would be to just read the tooltips, learn what each of your spells actually does, and really sort of focus on learning what each of those abilities would be best used in content. For example, learning when each cooldown would be best used. For example, you're in a boss like a trial fight and there's a big tank buster. Well, obviously you want to reserve something, or be that shields or a big heal for that tank in particular. If there's a quick succession of tank swaps and you're playing White Mage, for example, Benediction and Tetra are basically your best friends when it comes to snap healing those targets. You should really be saving those for those kind of oh poop moments basically, or sort of rotate those in if there is a double tank buster, depending on what your tank's doing. For example, there are mechanics such as Titania Extreme, where a Gunbreaker might use Super Bolide, go down to 1 HP sort of thing. So you have to kind of wait for them to take those hits and then full heal them. Don't full heal them straight away. So you kind of have to look at their buff. Don't let the timer run out and let them die from it, but kind of be sort of aware, sort of spatial awareness, sort of awareness of what's going on and basically what happens in each of those fights. And obviously the other key component to any healer and making healing easier is communication with both your tanks and your other healers, which is why outside of a static group where you would be communicating ordinarily anyway, you want to be trying to sort of ask the other person what they are doing, who they are focusing on, if you're unsure about this. In most pug content that's sort of not extreme or higher, you can pretty much just get away with doing whatever you want. There's no real sort of yes or no to it. I would imagine that for the most part, you're only really going to need to do that sort of like tactical gameplay when you come to the extreme or the raids or savage content, basically. In normal stuff, it doesn't matter that much. But yeah, just sort of read through your tooltips, sort of learn what each ability does, how much they heal for, focus on sort of building your character in a certain way. So look into obviously capping your Phantasmagoria each week, try to get your weapon up as soon as you can. And if you really want to get into that savage content, go and join a practice party. There's nothing worse in the game than having anxiety to not join other players. That's the worst thing that this community has ever done on the negative side. You need to get past that anxiety and just join a group, join a practice group, learn the mechanics as you go sort of thing. And if anybody complains, just say it's a practice group. You wrote practice group and go from there. And that's the best advice I can possibly give you to sort of getting to understand both your class and the mechanics and how your class reacts to them. So thank you for that question. Hopefully that was helpful. It's a little bit simple information, like I say, but you never know. It might have helped slightly. Carly Rush, our good friend and Patreon supporter, asks, if you could create any glamour outfit, what would it look like? Ooh, this is a tough one. Would it be male and female only or unisex? How would you want it to be earned? So we've got a few sort of barreled questions there together. In general, I think when it comes to glamour, the longest sort of outfit with sort of like feathers on it, maybe something a little bit, how do I describe this? So a long gown. So people will already hate me because I said I wanted a long gown, and we've got enough dresses in the game already. But like long sleeves. So, you know, like we have with the High Summoner outfit where you've got the fabric coming down from the arms. Instead of that, have it like a little bit like the Bone Wicker's caster outfit, but with feathers. I would love that. I would like feathered outfits that drape along the floor, probably like, you know, clip horribly, but I would love that sort of thing. As opposed to it being gender locked, not really. If I could create new glamour items for the game, I think I would try to make them as much unisex as possible, or at least even if they look terrible on the male counterpart, for example, just allow it anyway. It kind of annoys me when we can't just make our characters look ugly for the sake of it. There's lots of MMOs that just have that option already, and really it's up to you what your character looks like. If you want to make him look completely ridiculous, then we should have that choice, in my opinion. But, you know, everybody has different opinions, and some people don't want people to walk around in female-looking outfits, inverted commas, on male characters. But it's 2019. We've got to let our hair down a little bit, I think, and, you know, get rid of that sort of stigma of locking things to certain genders. I mean, they did it with the Gold Saucer stuff, with the bunny outfits, and I would like to see more things unlocked so everybody can equip them. Can you imagine the variety of different glamours we would have if we didn't have gender locks on gear? Oh my goodness, the glamour system would just expand tenfold overnight. But, you know, that's basically a pipe dream. And the other thing would be, how would you want it to be earned? So with my feathered outfit, I would want that to be earned by playing the game. This is something that I go back to all the time. I think that there needs to be something to work towards that's cosmetic in the game that you can get by doing a certain amount of dungeons. I've said this before, that there's not enough people doing these dungeons. Don't basically incentivize them with phantasmagoria or anything like that, or roulettes. Get them to do certain amounts of dungeons or certain amounts of roulettes per day, and give them like these coins, and you collect the coins, and after a week you can exchange them for a piece of glamour. That would be awesome. Or even a month, I don't care. Make it difficult to do in one go, but not difficult to grind for. I think that's the, you know, the real sort of ticket to getting people to keep playing the game. You know, you could even put this in the New Game Plus system as a reward. I would like to see, what are the incentives for playing New Game Plus? Well, if I was designing it, I would put glamour rewards after every 10 quests completed from scratch, so you would actually have something to go back for. It could be related to the storyline, or it could be completely unrelated, but at least you would get people to do that content. We could have the same thing for Blue Mage, for example, if we did sort of Blue Mage PvP. Basically, I'm just saying that there needs to be something that we work towards as opposed to just being straight out given. And also, I don't want it to be overly grindy. I want you to have an incentive to actually do some fun parts of the game and, you know, get rewarded for it. And ultimately, I think that would benefit the game as a whole. And for the most part, they do that in certain areas of the game, but I feel that adding endless amounts of glamour and mounts and things to things like Eureka isn't necessarily going to pull everybody into it. There needs to be a larger variety of ways to get certain things and give us a nice diversity of things to do for our collection items. Because as we all know, the true endgame is glamour, and if you put glamour behind anything, people will do it. You watch, as soon as the Ishgard restoration comes out, the fact that they said there was going to be glamour, mounts and minions behind that system, people are going to start leveling crafters and gatherers. I said that before with the guild making tip. It will happen, and you will see a massive amount of people, especially considering they're reworking crafting and gathering as well, like simplifying it and taking out some of the, you know, sort of double abilities that do similar things, homogenizing it a little bit, making it simpler to understand without macros. Yeah, it's going to be the time of the crafter and gatherer, I think, for 5.1 onwards, and that's not a bad thing at all. Enixfo asks, do you figure yourself an Indian or a chief in PvP? Not really sure what that means. Let's read on. Are you someone who follows someone else's commands, or are you someone who leads your team to victory? Are you a loner who tries to sneak around marching to the beat to your own drum? How do you play PvP? In general, I play PvP sort of differently every time. It really sort of depends on what the rest of the group are doing. So I guess I'm a little bit sheepy in that regard. But for the most part, you know, you need to group up and zerg certain points. It depends what sort of PvP mode we're doing. Sometimes in Shatter, though, I will just go a completely different direction and just shatter some of the crystals, you know, some of the tome lifts, simply because other people are not doing that objective. So I kind of lone wolf some of the things. But for the most part, you know, I'm a team player and I try to engage with the objective as much as possible. When it comes to 5.1 though, where we get the new sort of Naadam frontline, we're going to have more focus on sort of open field PvP because you can't retake the points once you've taken them. So I think for the most part, I might just sort of stick together in small groups. I prefer that than large groups because there's a lot more tactics to that, sort of locking down the healer, trying to defeat them, and then working on a ranged and so on. So yeah, it kind of depends on what content we're doing. There's so many different sort of ways to approach PvP. Sticking to just one method of play is kind of boring after a while, so you have to kind of mix it up a little bit. But yeah, thank you for your question, but for the most part, it really depends on what the team's like, what they're doing, and if they have a brain cell between them, which for the most part recently, you know, hasn't been the case, especially in Shatter. People just PvP in the middle and don't do anything else, which, you know, doesn't get you wins at the end of the day. And finally, when it comes to the end of this video, because that's all we have time for today, we have one last, well, it's not a question, but someone dared me. They dared me. They said, Uli Serdyuk says, I dare you to do a video with a female voice. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do a whole video, but I can definitely use my effects to make a female voice if that's something you're interested in. So we'll try that for the end of the video, and we'll end on that. Might as well end on a high note to make you all just cackle with laughter wherever you are. So yeah, enjoy.
Hi there, my name's Meoni, and this time we're going to be looking at new glamour items. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.
And make sure you hit that subscribe button and the like if you like this video. And make sure you hit the bell as well, because YouTube is terrible, otherwise you won't actually get my videos in your inbox. Amazing.